Hello, this is Dave Sugarbaker, and today is the 13th day of October 2024. And I have a starting place in Jeremiah. This is a short thing about hope. For surely I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for your welfare and not for harm, to give you a future with hope. Then when you call upon me and come and pray to me, I will hear you. When you search for me, you will find me. If you seek me with all your heart, I will let you find me, says the Lord, and I will restore your fortunes and gather you from all the nations and all the places where I have driven you, says the Lord, and I will bring you back to the place from which I sent you into exile. So that's good news. That's hope. History can be confusing at times. Before we talk about cynicism, we have to differentiate between the cynics of ancient times and the cynics of today. So two different breeds. The modern understanding of cynicism is an attitude of scornful or jaded negativity, especially a general distrust of the integrity or motives of others. This modern definition of cynicism is a marked contrast to the ancient philosophy of cynicism, which emphasized virtue and moral freedom in liberation from desire. Ancient cynics shunned material wealth and sought to live ethical lives unpolluted by culture. Ancient cynicism started with the Greek philosophers 2 or 3 centuries before the time of Jesus, and it experienced a resurgence at the time of Jesus as Rome took over the Greek Empire. Cynics could be found throughout the Roman Empire, standing on street corners preaching about virtue. One of the ancient cynics' trademarks, they would always carry a staff. And when Jesus sends out his disciples on their first solo evangelistic mission, this is from Matthew, he specifically tells them not to carry a staff. He doesn't want them to be mistaken for cynics who were also evangelizing in Galilee. Some mistook Jesus for a cynic. Gadara, a Greek city on the east side of the Sea of Galilee, was a focal point for the ancient cynic movement. Jesus visits Gadara at one point. Some biblical scholars say that he met a man there who was the real-life inspiration for the prodigal son story, and Jesus sent that man home. Modern cynicism is different. Today's cynics distrust the integrity of professed motives of the professed motives of others. They display a scornful or jaded negativity. There's a perception that cynicism is a smart choice. At least if you're one of the cynics, you look around and say, boy, am I smart. So what's the opposite of a cynic? As far as the cynics are concerned, the opposite is to be a rube, a chump, a gullible optimist. A cynic is all about not trusting others to do good or be good. I read a book recently about modern cynicism and hope. The title was Hope for Cynics. And in it, the author, a Stanford behavioral science professor named Jamil Zaki, says that we humans have a natural tendency to see things negatively. We are inclined to see the glass as half empty. This negative bias makes us think that people are worse than they actually are. And these mistakes leak into our actions. To stay safe in a selfish world, the cynics may take preemptive strikes, surveilling or threatening or harming others. because of their negative bias. The author talks about a study in which 1,500 people, 750 Democrats, 750 Republicans, were asked to estimate the percentage of the opposite party who would be ready to use violence if the next election didn't go their way. Now, they also asked all of these 1,500 people how they personally felt about using violence to prevail politically. So this is going to be a measure of how we see each other across the political divide. Both sides estimated 30+% of the other guys would use violence if the election didn't go their way. Now, the real number, the actual number from the survey was 5 to 7%. And that in itself is a scary number, but our negative bias makes the problem 5 to 6 times bigger than it really is. Social media has learned to tickle our negative bias to generate more views and more revenue. And if we want to live more hopeful lives, we can limit our exposure to the news and to social media, both of which will cater to our negative bias. But that's really the small stuff. How do we act hopefully in spite of our natural tendency to see the glass half empty? The author says, I've combed through hundreds of studies revealing that hope is a precise, powerful strategy for well-being, harmony, and social change. The Stanford behavioral science professor says, if we act out of hope, that is, if we demonstrate trust in others, we increase the odds that others will respond positively to that trust. We know that our expectations of students make a big difference in how the students finally respond. If we treat them as if they're budding outlaws and simply try to keep them from screwing up, they will keep screwing up. If we expect them to be variously talented and successful, they will respond by displaying their talent and they will excel. So it's our choice as adults. Our expectations make a difference. If we project hope and trust, behavioral science says 80% of the time, that's what we'll get back, based on scientific evidence. What we put out there will determine what we get back, most of the time. If we are cynical and untrusting, we should not be surprised to find our glass continues to be half empty and probably draining fast. It's our choice. The professor says we have to learn how to disagree better. He has 4 characteristics of good disagreeers. The first characteristic is good disagreeers ask questions instead of making statements. Secondly, good disagreeers work to get underneath people's opinions to their stories. Third, good disagreeers, when they spot common ground, they name it. And fourth, good disagreeers, when they're unsure about something, they say so rather than pretending to be confident in all their information. Now, following these rules may save your Thanksgiving dinner from breaking apart before the pumpkin pie arrives. At the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus outlines the steps a new follower of the way goes through, getting to the final goal of being a peacemaker. And when you get to being a peacemaker, you're called a child of God. That is, you're one of God's spiritual offspring, and you display the same characteristics as your spiritual parent. Being a peacemaker involves letting go of cynicism and practicing practical, scientifically based hope. Now, thank you for your time. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this thing. And if you find value here, I'd appreciate it if you'd pass it along. Take care. God bless you, and I'll see you soon.